it's nice to just be able to have a space where I could step into and tap into being like myself at the highest level, you know what I mean? And also show people that it's okay for you to do that as well, you know, try and inspire those to tap into their higher self. I've always just followed my intuition, you know, my gut, and just kind of always listened to that little voice in me that's like, okay, it's now, go. You know what I'm saying? Don't hold back. Don't be afraid, you know, try and eradicate fear.
It's a big one. To come out of childhood and understand that fear, uncontrolled, lacks the potency required for a motivation, right? That is the craziest thing to be able to acknowledge, because most of us spend our whole lives making decisions based out of some kind of fear.
Of course.
How did you get rid of that? Who helped you do that? Like, how does that go away at a young age?
That's probably foundation of that is my family. You know, I think I've been blessed because I've had such a great support system behind me. You know, my mum, my brothers and sisters were very, very supportive of my dreams and like, you know, go for it. We're gonna back you. We're gonna be in your corner. And I think that helps, because I think as an artist, like self-doubt and, you know, having periods where you don't necessarily believe in yourself is almost inevitable sometimes. So when you have like the support system around you that in those times can kind of help bring you back to that point of believing in self is really helpful.
How important has the kind of the Nigerian heritage, the part of your family, you know, that where you come from originally and what your family, what it means to you. But being in the UK, which is an incredibly multicultural environment and very community-based as well, I lived there for a long time. I mean, how does that whole puzzle how important is that to you when you think about it as a through line in your life leading to your art?
It's super important. I mean, in my household, it was very Nigerian, you know, from my mum speaking Yoruba to me, from our foods, you know, what she would cook, to the music she played, to what she was watching, you know, Nollywood movies. And then as soon as I open my front door, it's like London, you know.
London. And that's an interesting situation for you to be in, because you have this amazing community in your home, which is there telling you this is your family, this is where you come from.
Yes.
But then London has other ideas, right? London is like just like hit the street and it just happens, and you make it happen, and it's really ragged out there on the streets in London. It just go
for sure.
And so what was it like, kind of forming an identity from that place of ultimate support you just beautifully described, and then getting out there and figuring out who you are on the streets of London?
For sure, yeah. Well, I kind of grew up in North London. And growing up, I had my school friends, and then I had like people that I grew up with in my area, and like I came up with a team called Space Age. So there was like a group of us, and we all done music, and we all would go to my friend LaShawn's house and like record and make music there, and sometimes at mine as well when my mum would allow it. So I've always surrounded myself with like-minded individuals. Without me even knowing, I guess, I think I probably just attracted that. You know, I was very drawn to creative people. I went to a youth centre called St. Mary's.
Really influential too. I mean, for the people who went there, a lot came out and seemed to be built to manage the situation.
Exactly. It's where I met Inflow, who I work with to today, you know. So we've always kind of been around environments where creativity is like the one thing that was like ours, you know, our art was ours.
That's an important statement, Simz, because, you know, you have built and maintained a strong, independent vision.
Thank you.
And a lot gets made of independent artists. And I've done this myself, where we seem so fascinated with people who don't get drawn into the thrash of infrastructure. That we almost put too much pressure, like, oh, you're an independent artist. And it's like, the way you're describing it is like, well, that's how we learnt to function.
Of course,
Rather than make a statement, it was by design out of the need for community and collaboration, right?
Exactly that. And kind of just like, like I said, our art is really all we have. This is a way in which we're able to really express ourselves and kind of make the most out of what we have. You know, I'm someone that is very big on like, all right, cool, we ain't got budget to do this, we're gonna figure it out. You know, if we're shooting a video, I got some clothes, I can borrow my sister's stuff, I can, you know, I know your brother's got mad hats, let's get him in the video, let's, you know what I'm saying, just trying to work with the resources we have amongst each other to make something happen. And so learning that independence was something that I'd kind of built from early without even really recognizing it at the time.
I don't think we put enough emphasis on the fact that, you're working with what you have and you didn't ask for these resources or not those resources, but ultimately it's more fun that way if you think back on it.
Yeah, for sure.
We're always looking for answers, right? We're always looking for someone to help us figure out our vision. If we lean into a place where business tells you, I got you, then you're almost already denying yourself some of the most fun.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. That's the key word, I think, fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We don't say it enough.
We don't say it enough, man. Sometimes you just enjoy yourself and just have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? And it hasn't always got to be so serious and so like, even me as a person, like in real life, you know, I'm very to myself, you know, I'm just me. I'm quiet, I'm not, you know, but as soon as I get on stage or as soon as I'm doing something I'm super passionate about, kind of turn into this person. And
I was going to say, is that what Simz is to you? Is Simz a chance for you to explore something that you need to express yourself through, that but without sacrificing your actual nature as a quiet person?
Exactly, for sure. And I think it's nice to just be able to have a space where I could step into and tap into being like myself at the highest level, you know what I mean? And also show people that it's okay for you to do that as well, you know, try and inspire those to tap into their higher self.
You got to be able to protect your true nature in that space, though. And the more successful Little Simz becomes, the more people want to know about the boss.
Of course.
And you're like, hard. I don't know if I want to be the boss right now. I kind of want to be able to like collect my thoughts, right? How is that balanced? Because it's not like Little Simz isn't a thing. It's a thing.
Right. I'll be honest, Zane, like it's tough, you know what I'm saying? And I think like that's something that I've kind of not struggled with, but I've found challenging over the years, is to wear a few different hats, you know, and still be myself and still be Simbi, you know, but then also be the boss and then be the performer and then be
the actor
and the all-round creative
and the person with a loud, very resonant cultural voice.
Yeah,
somebody that people look to and say, hey, you know, we out here in the UK, we really appreciate voices like yours.
Yeah.
Being loud.
Yeah.
But to your point, you don't strike me as a loud person by nature.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I'm not, to be honest. And those labels kind of get put onto you. And then you kind of, it's just for me to like step in that and walk in that light and be like, okay, cool, maybe that is a purpose of mine, you know, to be a voice of some sort, but also I'm human, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to make very human mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know, I never want to repeat the same mistakes, but I'm open to make new ones because I'm human.
You've made mistakes? You know? I don't know
what?
Too many steps you've put wrong in this whole thing.
No, man, I've had my fair share of, you could have done without that. You know, you didn't need to do that, or you could have handled that a bit differently or whatever it was.
What was something that you did you feel comfortable talking about, or even slightly uncomfortable enough to talk about right now with me, where you were like, you know what, I'm not going to forget that. That was a moment where things changed for me, and I understand that is not the path I want to be on.
Maybe in my earlier... Yeah, when I just kind of started out, which is allowing people to maybe dictate my vision a bit, or what I should dress like, or what I should, you know, present myself as, and kind of ran with that. And I always felt, this feels uncomfortable, but what do I know?
What do I know?
You know,
at this point?
Yeah, exactly.
How much stake in the game do I have to push back?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And feeling like, you know, just being so trusting, like, which is, I love that about myself, you know, I give people grace, and it's like, you know, I trust in what people say until I'm proven otherwise, you know. But I think like just in the beginning, I just wish I kind of had a bit more of that thing in me that was like, no, trust yourself. You know best. You know yourself. You lived it yourself for 20 odd years. You know what I mean?
Well, the difference there is that like trusting somebody is different to trusting a process. And the thing is that the people who are asking you to do something that feels uncomfortable, they're beholden to a process that's been established for them.
Exactly.
And now they're including you in that process. It's not really, you're not really trusting or not trusting any individual at that point. You're all basically serving the same process.
Same process, facts. Exactly.
You know, and the only way out of that, right, is to build your own process.
And to break, and eventually even those people like come round, you know, and see, actually, I'm not mad at that way of doing things.
That's how things get better.
Exactly.
I feel like Grey Area was in a really important moment in that. Your previous albums, obviously, so much promise. You had great experiences off the back of those. They established your voice. No disrespect to those projects. But I feel like Grey Area to me, when I heard it for the first time, was you saying, I got a process.
Yeah, it was for sure. And being like just unapologetically me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't feel that there was anything at the time that was coming out that was sounding like boss, that was sounding like offense, even selfish, you know what I mean, from a UK artist.
Even 101 FM, which jumped out FM, so hard at the time, was like...
Big tune.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man.
For sure. You established such a unique sound. It was exactly what Flo and you do so brilliantly, and he's been able to elaborate on with Sultan and some of his other, you know, work with other people. I mean, he understands the instant vintage... like timeless instant vintage appeal of certain drums and certain feels, never at the sacrifice of modernity.
Yeah.
That's a fine line.
Facts. Big facts.
I mean, to watch him grow as his friend in your process, I've been dying to ask you this. How has, because he's quiet, how has that, on the record, not so quiet off the record, but how has that been?
Man, that's my brother, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's been such an instrumental part of my life journey as Simbi the person, you know what I'm saying? Not even Simz the artist. Like, you know, I call him and I ask him advice on so many different things, and he's always just been there for me. Even when we wasn't like, because there was a period, we started working together when I was super young, and I would just always nag him for beats, like, send me beats. This is like 2007, 2008. And he would, and I'd do my thing or whatnot, and then I kind of went off and done my own thing, but he was always in my corner, you know what I'm saying? And then we kind of... I remember coming off tour with Gorillaz, and I was just going through a madness in life anyway, and I was just like, Dean, like, Flo, I'm ready. I'm ready now. It's now. It's got to be now. And he was like, yeah, say no more.
How did you know? You were feeling it? It was like, it went from simmer to eruption. You felt it. Yeah,
it did. And I just felt like there was a space that I needed to tap back into that I hadn't been in for a while, and I was in that space when I was working with him in my earlier days. You know what I'm saying? And I thought I need to get back to that hunger, that
space of like
space, man.
The mic is not fit to be used after I've touched it.
Right, and being over instrumentation that will evoke something in me that I haven't said before. I haven't felt inspired to write about, and I knew like, it's going to be over Flo's beats, you know what I'm saying? Because he knows how to do that and well, and kind of tailor instrumentation around the artist. You know, it's not just me on a beat, you know, he's great at, that's a producer, you know, when they're able to craft the music around the artist and make it fit in for them.
You know how I always know when an artist like yourself who's working in a similar energy field is in their bag is when, you know, you have the confidence to drop a hot 8. Out and it's just you. It's just everything cuts out. It's just like, just let me have the floor. You know, and I think you and Flo having the confidence to let that happen and not try to dress it all up. I think about Simbi the album, and I think about that couldn't exist without Grey Area. Those two things, I feel like you needed. Grey Area had to be just kind of like, apologies if anyone's offended by swearing, but I'm from New Zealand. We use it only for positive purposes. This album, Grey Area, is just absolutely, it's like you've been just drinking nothing but you juice.
Yeah.
Right? There was a thing
great
of
way
like,
to describe
there was
it.
a thing of just like, I'm just going to take it. And I'll get into the introverted side of me later.
Yes.
But right now I just got to take it.
Yeah.
Is that what you were referring to when you said there's a space I've got to get to? I've got that
Yes.
fire in me.
Exactly that. It's going to be 35 minutes. It's going to be 10 songs. Very direct, very to the point. I'm going to say everything that's been brewing and then kind of see what happens. And honestly, I had no expectation of that album. I didn't think it was going to be the breakthrough record, and I just wanted to create and just, like I said, get back into that space. And it just shows. And it's funny because that is the first album that I didn't have expectations with, and it done the most.
Yeah.
My first album, my second album,
Yeah.
it's gonna go number
Yeah, because
one.
you were
This is
in
gonna
that
be
process. And with process comes the expectation of results.
Exactly.
And people will tell you you're going to achieve them
Yes.
because they want you to.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
And Grey
crazy.
Area was the first record where I was like, regardless of what this does or doesn't do, like I'm tapping into something and I'm going for it.
Man, I remember, I don't know if I ever got back to you, but someone who was working with you at the time brought that album in before it came out and said, I want to play new Little Simz. Of course, they came to my office across the parking lot and they played that album, and I was like, I'll never forget it.
Wow.
I'll never forget it. I mean, I was pulling everybody I knew into the office that day. I was like, you have to hear this. Because to your point, there was an immediacy. You had let the unnecessary go. So it was just all essential. I was like, oh my days. So
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't surprise anybody that it went on to do what it was going to do.
Thank you.
But at that point, you get to decide how much of yourself you really want to share.
Yeah.
Because you've put the superhero costume on, you've
Yeah.
shown the identity, and I was like, okay, what is Introvert going to be? What was that album like to make? An altogether different, more ambitious, it built on Grey Area, but it was like, if you're a Tribe fan, Grey Area's low end theory, that was Midnight Marauders.
Right. Yeah, it's a great way to put it for sure. Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, I think, was like, I didn't know when we started that it was going to sound like that, because I was so in it and I was so honed in on, I guess, my writing and kind of, I guess the first time that I kind of let that be the center and the focus of my attention. I think other times I've been very much like, let's try to produce the album as well, and
well, you're a cottage industry, Simz. You got to think about all the creative across the board, right?
Exactly. But sometimes I Might Be Introvert. I was so into like, no, I need to focus on the one thing I know I can do with my eyes closed and in my sleep, and that's right, And so I'm gonna hone in on that and really trust the process. And it was a beautiful experience, from just recording. I mean, there was a lot going on in the world at the time with like the pandemic stuff and that, so that obviously inspired a lot of the,
but
the
it
music.
doesn't sound like a pandemic album at all to me. In fact, it was a relief that it didn't. So much music felt like it was in direct reaction to what we were all going through.
Yeah.
I feel like that album could have come out in like 2024.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And that was, I guess, us, the same thing, just tapping into a space. And even our recording process, we done some strings in a church. I was writing in my car, I was writing in my bedroom, I was writing in the studio. Like, I was in so many different spaces just trying to get out what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a really beautiful process. It was really tough as well. I think I was as tough on myself.
Right, so you were setting real high standards.
Yeah, for sure. Especially coming off the back of Grey Area, I knew people are going to be listening.
I also love the fact that you, you really pay respects to the people in rap. Like, you're a rap fan.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people who rap don't, it's not a natural conversation for me to always have with rap stars about rappers. Yes and no. Like, sometimes they go, yeah, I'm into this, and they give you the laundry list, but they don't often talk about them in the context of their music the way you do.
Right. Now, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, for the greats that come before me. Like, it wouldn't.
Who sparked your imagination? Who was number one? What's day one? Like, I can tell you right now, day one for me was Run DMC. Like, everything built from Run DMC for me. Who was your day one?
Missy Elliott, just based off the pure fact that she was a black woman in hip hop, and she just stood out by being herself.
Yeah.
You know, that is something that I'll always remember, just be like, oh, like, she's so herself, like, that's sick. You know, that's what I want to do, you know. Not to mention, like, Timbo was going crazy on the beats.
Crazy.
You know, the videos were crazy.
I mean, almost, I think, in a way, we're only figuring out now just how innovative a writer she is, because the videos and the beats and the performances and her whole aura was so on Mars.
Out here.
But you listen to her songs now, and the
pen's
words
amazing.
and the flows.
Yes. And what she's done just even behind the scenes, you know, when she's been producing or been writing songs for other people, like, she is so, like, really about it. And I just remember being really, really inspired by her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Missy. And then my brother was a huge Nas fan, and I just remember, like, riding with him in the car and just taking him in and being like, I don't understand the level of what he's saying, but he's so smart. He's a real lyricist, and
I don't know too many artists in my lifetime that paint pictures as well as he does.
Yeah, very, very vivid.
You know, he's able to take you into one singular environment and describe it to such a degree that you get anxious.
Yeah.
Or you get excited.
Yeah.
Or you feel the feelings that he's feeling in that moment. It's not descriptive. It's immersive almost.
Yeah, exactly that.
I want to talk about feeling. I'm obsessed with feeling right now, because I think we listen to a lot of things, and I think that we don't allow ourselves the space to feel as much as we should.
Facts.
And I think that feeling is when it becomes a reality unrealized yet. It becomes something that is, you're on a different path when you feel it than you are when you hear it.
Yes.
Right? You shift a couple of degrees left or right on your axis, and you're going somewhere deeper and somewhere else. What is your experience when it comes to feeling things? Are you a very emotionally dialed in human being? Do you feel a lot? You do.
I do, for sure. I'm very, very feelings led, you know, and that's been. And these when we was talking about earlier about some of the mistakes and stuff, and that's great for creativity and music, but sometimes not so great for business, you know. And that's where I've had to kind of can't be so emotionally led when it comes to business, because it is the music business, you know. And I got to remove that in some areas. But when it comes to creating and what sticks out of me and what evokes a particular emotion, like, that's beautiful, and I love that about myself, and I love that I'm able to tap into that side of myself when writing, for sure.
You have done. I mean, you know, a song like Wounds, the beginning of No Thank You, in dedication to your friend, you know,
Harry,
Harry. And I mean, I didn't really know enough about the story until I started hearing your music, and so I started investigating it. What a terribly tragic turn of events.
Yeah.
This chain of events that was just set in motion is so sad and real loss. When it comes to translating that into music and finding a way to pay tribute and also work through your own feelings through art, how is that for you?
I think it just allows me to, like, speak on it, to be honest, because I'm someone that, if I'm going through something, and sometimes this is healthy and sometimes it's not, but I'm a very insular person, you know, and I'll deal with things by myself and kind of just like, okay, this is what I'm going through. I'll go into my little cave and, you know, that's it. But I think speaking about it allows me to process it a lot more and remind myself that I'm human. And sometimes I even say things out, like, bro, I didn't even know I felt like that until I said it out loud.
You're in some subconscious space.
Exactly. So I think it just allows me to process how I'm feeling about something, and just not be afraid to speak on it. And that doesn't make me weak, or it doesn't make me, not strong, or whatever it is. I think I've actually found a lot of strength in my vulnerability. And and I think even listening to, as we were saying, artists, whether that is a Nas or whether that is a Biggie or a Pac, like
Lauryn Hill.
Lauryn Hill, they're very
Bible
emotional writers, you know.
And
but I've always saw them as like superheroes, you know, and they've, I guess the same with them, they found their strength in their vulnerabilities. So just knowing that I also can do the same.
What is the conversation that you and Dean are having, that Flo are having, when it's like, you know, we should put on these Baroque horns that sound like I'm descending into the church in order to speak to the masses, right? Like what is that conversation? And then, by the way, then I'm going to rip the out of the microphone for 5 minutes straight.
What is the conversation? I think we're both very visual people, you know, and so we reference a lot of art and film, you know, and we talk a lot about film, and in the studio we put films on. And so we almost subconsciously make like score type, movie type, anthemic, cinematic songs just because we're genuine fans of that.
That's
you know?
Cool, because you get to almost attach the emotion that's going through you to a visual that allows it to become to better vividly explain it. It's like motivation material. I love that.
Yeah, man.
What were you playing? What movies were on? What?
Well, I think one of our go-tos is probably Breakfast at Tiffany's.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Why?
Yeah. Just this aesthetically, and just like the colours are so beautiful.
Oh my God, you two are like such weirdo Renaissance people, right? You really are. Like, you just come out from such a different place.
Yeah. No, but it's cool, and I think it just allows us to like, it almost sometimes doesn't feel like we're making music as Little Simz and as Inflow. You know what I'm saying? We're just creating, you know. This could be for anything really.
Yeah.
And just it's fun. It's a fun way to make it.
So no, thank you. It's time.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about I just want to get to a very, very basic, straightforward starting point on this album. It felt like it came quick. I know it didn't, but it felt like it did, because I felt like Introvert just kept building momentum, and then we all came out of quarantine, and it was positioned for us to really love outside.
Yes.
So it felt like it never went away. It never felt like like the cycle had exhausted itself. So when No Thank You came around, probably not to you, but to me it was like already? Outstanding. So what made you want to get back in?
But even that though, I think we got to get out of this like being so attached to stuff. Like, I remember putting songs out on MySpace every week.
Yeah.
SoundCloud every week.
Yeah.
Like,
execute.
like go. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and so I don't know when this thing of like, you got to wait 3-4 years to put out an...
Well, I do. It's when something connects, and then everyone's like, please just stay with this for long enough to let as many people absorb it as possible.
I hear it, but where does that leave the artist? Do you know? Where does that leave me? Like, I understand.
I knew today was going to be wicked. That's the best question. It's not even a question. That's actually a statement question. It doesn't actually deserve a response.
Right.
You're making a statement with a question mark on it.
Right. Yeah, because it's true. From the release date, something comes out on this date, but I wrote this 2 years prior. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in a whole different space from when Introvert actually came out.
Don't talk to me like I'm that Drake from 5 years ago. I'm in a different place. You know, no, I get it. I mean, we do like, I think that's the part of the trade we get confused about as fans, and I'm including absolutely like front and center in this conversation, is that I become attached to what it means to me, and I'm not quite sure how to let you go. Right.
Yeah, and I hear it, you know. I'm also a fan and I get that as well, but sometimes like, and there's a thing called, like, not a thing called, like, you haven't heard of this before, but momentum as well, do you know? It's like you have something building and it's like, nah, now's the time to say something, like, and it's never going to feel like this again, do you know? So, yeah, and also there was stuff going on at the time that I remember I had to cancel my US tour, and that was a really rough period. I was like, you know, switching teams around and stuff.
Is that why you had to cancel it?
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
And just things not being handled the way they should have been. I take accountability for sure, you know,
Great.
because I know my 50%. But I had to protect myself in that space and my mental well-being. And
You have to take accountability to make a change that dramatic
yeah,
anyway.
for sure, 100%.
By its very nature. Blame doesn't actually work.
It doesn't mean mate. And I think I'm really like thankful that I have supporting, you know, fans as I do that actually were like, yo, like, it's all good, like, you know what I'm saying?
Just hit us with another project, we'll be fine.
Yeah, you know. So it's always like, all right, cool, I can't come out and see you, but I have got new music for you, and guess what? I'm gonna come and tour both albums, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I mean, I even know you tour Grey Area obviously extensively, and you've done festivals and whatnot and brought this music to life. But I feel like this feels like a triumvirate tour to me.
Right.
Like it feels like I'm feeling like I said, there's 3 books on the row here, and they all speak to each other perfectly. And I just think your arc. I actually think all things work out timing wise when they're supposed to.
For sure.
It feels good. Why'd you go to Paris? Just cause?
No, well, I was on tour.
Yeah.
And I had the most time off in Paris.
Right.
So it made sense to kind of try and finish the album, which, by the way, even when we shot the visual, which was shot by directed by Gabriel Moses, amazing filmmaker, by the way. I brought him to the studio, like Flo and I were working, verses were overheard, mixes were off, everything was like a bit of a mess. Yeah. And he understood what we was working with, and even on the day of the shoot, we were shooting songs that were not finished. I was like on set, and Flo's in the studio recording strings, and I was bouncing between both, and then going to do a show. It was madness, but yeah, man, everyone believed, and I think and that's another thing as well. Sometimes like you don't need to pitch that this is gonna be the most amazing. Some people just believe and just get it, you know.
I think you established that yourself, though. I think there is, not to gas you too. Well, sure, that's my job. I'm gonna gas you up. I think you established this ability to be able to. There's a trust in the process, even if the process is unrealized.
Yeah.
And also, as a filmmaker, that's got to be fun. I think.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I think we.
I don't know. Gabriel might have.
Maybe not. But I do think if you're a filmmaker, right, often you get given a finished result.
Yeah.
And it's like translate that into something. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's nice to be able to kind of have an unfinished body of work to figure out where the gaps are
where the missing
pieces are.
Facts, for sure, yeah. And that's what made it fun for me anyway. I think just knowing that, okay, we got this date, this has to be in by this time, otherwise we're not going to get this album out when we want it to.
Yeah.
I've already announced it, so I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
You're committed.
Yeah, I'm committed. I'm all in. Flo's on board, you know what I'm saying? The team's on board. Gabriel's doing his thing. So it really was like a team effort.
Did you laugh when you came up with the album title because of the multiple meanings it can be taken from?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, man.
I cracked up laughing. I showed it to 3 people to see what they thought, and it was exactly as I expected. One was like, no, thank you. And the other one was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like, and then there was a big debate, like, well, someone should put a comma. That would have a comma after it. I was like, I don't think it's that cut and dry.
Yeah, nah. To be honest, it stemmed from, I guess, somewhat a deep meaning. It's not even that deep, to be honest. It was just a realization of like the power of the word no. Yeah.
Oh, it's huge.
With politely though, you know.
The era of no is when the art enters a very fruitful phase.
Yes.
Because no allows space for the right yes.
Yes.
That's what I think. I think like, man, and I've been like, I used to get so upset when artists would say no, and now I'm like, good for you. Come back to me when you're ready to say yes.
Yeah, for sure. And same, you know, that was always like it just meant rejection. It meant this. It had so many negative like things attached to it, and actually, it's like, no, there's so much power in the word no in a positive way. And just standing for something and being like, no, like, you know, I'm actually all right. It's not compromising anything here. Yeah, man.
You're a gorilla, you know.
I'm out here, man. It's a jungle out here, Zane. I'm telling you.
But you're a gorilla. Well, you've. I mean, literally beyond the song and beyond everything else. You know, you did have your time in that camp. It's rare air and that watching them on stage at Coachella on the stream, I'll be there this weekend, and seeing the whole thing occur and happen reminded me that it's kind of been one of pop music and modern music's great experiments. This timeless experiment. What did you take from that? Because when you really stepped into that environment with Dee and Jamie, you weren't Simbi as you are now, right?
Yeah. No, I wasn't at all. And I think I remember first getting in into the studio with Dee for the first time, and my anxiety just being through the roof, like this is mad. And trying to, I guess, I felt myself trying to mold myself into what their thing was. And I remember Damon peeping it and being like, nah, that's not why I called you in here. I called you in here because I want you to do that thing only you can do, you know? Yeah. And I think from that, I was just like, okay, so every space I walk into, all I got to do is bring myself, you know? Wow. That's what I took from Damon, you know what I'm saying?
That might be one of the greatest observations any artist can come to.
Just bring yourself to any space, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to mold yourself or try and fit into it. Nah, man. You know, if you're in that room, it's because of you.
So do you trace all that's occurred in the last 5 years kind of back to that moment? That's deep.
Yeah. And what would have happened if I just brought myself at that point, you know? So that's something that I'll always have so much love and respect for Damon for that one thing he said to me.
It's funny, he has this reputation for being this like curmudgeonly, uncompromising, grumpy. At times, you know, British would have a different word for it, beginning with C.
Right.
New Zealanders use that word too, right? I'm sure he's been called that many times, right? But never
he's lovely, man.
He's one of my best mates. But never, excluding that personal relationship, never when it comes to the artist or the art.
Nah.
Like that, I feel like he's one of the most encouraging, special collaborators in modern music history.
And I'd love that, you know, anyone that's kind of worked with him or he always has a space for them, you know what I'm saying? It's, whether it's cool, we're playing here, come out and do this song on this show, like there's always a space to like be a part of that family. It's ever extending, it's ever growing, and he's built that, you know, and I just, it's really inspiring for me anyway.